Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes with a Modern Mystic. I'm Sascha. This is Michael. And today we talk about codependency.
You're going to talk about it and I'll come up with questions.
So to begin with, I pulled up codependency on Google. And it says the term codependency is often used casually to describe a relationship where a person is needy or dependent upon another person.
You mean there are relationships where that doesn't happen?
That could be a first question. So that would mean everybody on planet Earth is in a codependency.
I would say, honestly, the children are dependent on their parents. The parents are generally dependent on each other. Anybody who's listening saying, well, I don't depend on anybody, depends probably on everybody. And, we have the whole society has created a means that we need, that we're codependent, we're dependent on each other. And if you went back to Paleolithic times, like the clan or the family, they were incredibly dependent on each other, even though they were self-reliant, way beyond anything we are. Nevertheless, they depended on each other. And so even though they could be today self-reliance, I consider I'm fairly self-reliant, but I'm also dependent on my daughter with her electronic skills and my wife, simply because she's my wife. And they're dependent on me to be able to talk enough to earn a bob.
I guess what you're talking about now might be the positive or the normal side of codependency as a society or as a human being, since we're social beings.
Well, really, I'm talking in terms of everybody is.
And I think that the term codependency, as it is used in sociology and psychology, describes a certain type of relationship where you basically victim and perpetrator. And then there's this addiction going on, right?
Yeah, I think that's the negative side of codependent. And you see some pretty, well, I don't see them, but there are some pretty shocking examples of that, mainly where a man is an alcoholic or a brute, and his wife can't really leave him because he has the money. And she's incredibly dependent on him to the extent that she will take a beating once a week. Better the devil I know than the unknown. And that's a scary thing.
And most of those cases, if I look at them, I can't help but feel or see that we or these people who are in those relationships have had an upbringing which prepared themselves to attract somebody who will just exactly fit that codependency relationship they already had with their mother, with their father, or whoever it was as a child. You often see that in abuse situations.
I think in a way, what we're really talking about is victim consciousness. I mean, we could say a person is more codependent on others, but it's just another fancy psychological term for victim consciousness. You know, a person who's not victim consciousness is not codependent. I mean, quite a lot of women I know, I often describe them as alpha women. Believe me, they're not codependent. One of them I know, one thing she's learned was it's the husband that came to the worst of it with 3 kids, and if he left, she could still manage.
They probably have codependent husbands, though.
Well, that's not so impossible as it sounds. I mean,
but the way I understand it, there is this circular relationship. So one is the perpetrator, one is the victim, but on both sides, there is an addiction to that. So both get a kick out of the other being either the victim or the perpetrator, right?
I don't know whether they get a kick out of it. I've never played that game. I don't know whether they get a kick out of it, but it seems to me that in this day and age, a lot of people would be wise to do a university course on how to be married, how to live with another person, and how to get rid of the idea that I know exactly what they're thinking and they know what I'm thinking, so we don't need to communicate. And all such subjects as that, how a grunt doesn't really say what I think it how it doesn't communicate what I'm thinking. 3 grunts, they don't make it. They might in the pig world, but they don't make it in the human world. And so I have watched marriages sometimes, and you've just, in fact, one of them, I even set a date for it. I thought, give it 3 years and it'll be gone. 3 years and it was gone, because each was, it's like the victim. I tell you, to rephrase this, I have noticed that in the left brain dominant world, everybody likes to get the last word, to be the cleverest, to have the last word, and to come out on top of an argument. That's very left brain. Right brains really don't argue. What does it matter? And so I know somebody who's very close to me. I'm not going to say any word names in case by some freak of accident he should see this. But he and his wife were very intellectual. And so there was a game of intellectual dominance. Well, he would win that hands down pretty well with anybody. And I said to his wife one day, she said something particularly nasty to him, and it quite surprised me. I said to her, if you spoke to me like that, I would throw you in your swimming pool. And she said, oh God, I wish he would. And what she was saying was, I don't mind being physically dominated because he's not a violent man. I don't mind being physically dominated, but I do not want to be intellectually dominated. And so these games play off, which is not what we're calling codependence, but in some ways, a codependency is where one needs to argue with another one who always gives in. There's so many games that get played in a codependency. None of them are healthy. None of them contribute to the marriage. And many of them are negative, but there's not just like victim and victimizer. It's a battle between 2 intellects. I see that continually. Who's going to be the cleverest? Who wins this argument? And if that's a codependency, that's a particularly common one.
Speaking
if you're struggling with this, good, because it's your subject. You brought it up.
Now,
so
what this brings me to if I look at society as a whole, and let me just throw one more thing in that I came across quite recently, and it was that, generally speaking, whenever somebody's a victim, they say, oh, they are in victim consciousness, so it's always they are doing this to me. But I came across an information somewhere that released, whenever you are suffering any type of harm, whether it's torture, whether it's abuse, whether it's psychological abuse, physical, it doesn't matter. There is a chemical reaction in your brain where some hormones are released. And I don't remember the names of those hormones, but basically the article was saying that you get addicted to it on a physical level, right? I know you can get that addiction metaphysically or energetically too. I think we talked about it once, but so I find that interesting. And what I can't help but wonder is that this whole situation on this planet, specifically the relationship between the cabal and the people, is based on that addiction. It's based on that codependency addiction. Because if you look at what's happening out there and you wonder why, and then you understand, yeah, because people are used to it, people are addicted to it.
It's interesting what you said about the brain, because, you can get completely addicted to sunbathing, particularly in the nude, completely addicted. No hope of breaking it unless you have treatment. And also, there's an addiction to, argument.
Yep.
Some people definitely look for arguments, and there are many, many subtle addictions that come up with the brain creates that you'll never think is possible. And another one, that's a nasty one, is the addiction. As soon as you start saying, well, I'm getting old now, the brain triggers hormones and you start getting old. And our natural age span, if we went the same as all other animals, and why shouldn't we, is 140 years. But we don't do it that way. We talk and we think, and we end our lives much earlier than that. And so I have no doubt that codependency is the brain comes in it and gets triggered, one to win and one to lose.
Because other terms that they're using in psychology is you have a codependent person and you have a narcissistic person. So on the world level, in the world play, the cabal would be the narcissists, and the whole human population basically would be the codependent part.
Well, this is what I said weeks ago. We've developed a victimizer consciousness, and so wherefore we have to create the victim consciousness. So we have to create the victimizer, and that's the game we play out. But as I often say this, the template of humanity at the moment is so flawed in so many ways. Whatever it takes to break it, let's break it down and start again, because we ain't going anywhere the way we are. It doesn't mean we're bad or wrong. We're still mortal beings. But as you look at this on a metaphysical level, you begin to see, for instance, the world is in the populated, around the cities particularly, there's like a dense cloud of which would represent the thoughts, and the thoughts are heavy, and there is an energy above it, much lighter, where people who are happier and with a higher resonance to themselves, their thoughts collect, but they don't seem to collect in the same way. And so if you walk into those thoughts, into that energy of thinking, that's going to, unless you're centered and clear about yourself, you're going to head towards that. I remember hearing a person in Netherlands say, must be 10 years ago, he said, my wife and I agree beautifully. We had a lovely marriage. He said, whenever we go in the city, we start to squabble. Why is that? Well, 10 years ago, I hadn't a clue. I just hadn't a clue. But years after that, I never saw him more than a couple more times. And I began to see it, the thought forms as well. Thought forms hang around in the cities. Now, if you have a regular thought on a regular basis, then thought forms begin to do things to you. Like, for instance, and I've come across this many times, to just give you one, and it's a funny story, and I'm sure the listeners will like it. I've told it, I think, every intensive nearly, it's so funny. But I was giving a talk in Los Angeles, and the guy came up to me afterwards, and what I was talking about was creating your own reality. And now I say it in a different way. At every moment of your life, you are creating the content and direction of every moment of your life. But I said it, and he came up to me and said, I don't know whether I qualify for what you're talking about. So I said, so how do you mean? He said, well, he said, I drive in and out the city every day. He said, 8 lanes of traffic. He said, there's some bad drivers out there, which of course indicated that he's probably the best. But there's some rough drivers. He said, for 19 years, he said, I've been sitting there shouting, asshole, asshole, asshole. And he said, I just realized recently, nobody ever heard me. He said, the windows are up. He said, who heard me? I said, well, you did. And he said, I did? I said, yeah, you did. So tell me, how are your hemorrhoids? And he looked at me, I know you've heard the story. He looked at me in complete astonishment. How the hell did you know? I said, anybody who's been shouting asshole for 19 years would have to have a seriously compromised asshole. And he said, well, he said, it's just a word. I said, yeah, but the word is has energy. I said, you shouted asshole angrily. I said, and the only asshole it's going to is yours. So you've been pouring anger into your asshole for 19 years. He said, I'll tell you what, he made sure nobody was near us to hear. He said, I had a serious operation for hemorrhoids 12 years ago, and I need another one now. And he said, and you mean to tell me it's just the word and the anger? I said, yeah, asshole was the target. the anger went there. I said, this is your creation. I said, now, if you'd called out lovingly for 19 years and a beautiful voice with love in your energy, asshole, 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 for 19 years, your asshole would probably be lined in fur by now. He chuckled at that, and you should have seen him walk away. It was a classic case of hemorrhoids, which I hadn't seen when he arrived. But I mean, that's what happens. And so you're a pain in the neck, say it regularly, and thought forms begin to form around the neck. And very soon they begin to cause pain. And very soon that is cancer. And so many people die of throat cancer or anal cancer. And they, you know, he's a pain in the bum, she's a pain in the bum. And so I don't know where codependency comes in.
And I guess, well, I can tell you what I think, or how I think it comes in, because as humanity or as a society in general, I think we've been programmed carefully through the media from early age to feel or to think from a point of lack of self-worth. And that then through this, like, we have all these images of all these celebrities, every major movie you watch, oh, I want to be like him, I want to be like them, I want to be like, and I'm never good enough, you know? And so we start, like, just the way you're talking about the asshole, we are then beginning from a very early age to recreate that scenario where we're never good enough. And I think only because of that, we are in that codependent position. And that's why the narcissists and the psychopaths who are behind the scenes have power over us. And I think it's very carefully engineered, this whole system, through the media, through Hollywood, through all of this, just to keep us in that position. But the funny thing is, though, that it's really our power and our free will that keeps us in that position, locked in.
Well, it's our, and fear, you know, our fear, which is, you imagine how much human energy goes in generating fear, because it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
it comes from us. We have to create it. It's not like it's there. And the output every year of how to, I mean, it would light the world permanently if we were able to harness the energy we put into creating fear. I mean, it's also an illusion, you know, because nobody can take your power from you. Nobody. I mean, they can put you in a prison.
They first have to create that illusion, right? They first have to create the illusion that somebody can take your power away. Then you have to recreate that illusion that somebody can take your power away. And then they can actually take your power away.
This is what they're doing in Queensland right now. I read today, and I put it onto the Telegram today, that they're talking of bringing in the military, and because they're going to release the next wave, which will be Ebola, or related disease, which will be really deadly. And it's going to sweep through people, and everybody has to have the jab, whether they want it or not, and they'll take the military around. And they've already booked the hotels in Brisbane, the capital city of Queensland, and they're booked up for 3 months, starting from Christmas. And it's all going to be full of the military, and they're going to enforce this. Now, is that true, or is it a fear-mongering tactic? Because there's people being paid to come up with scenarios like this.
You never know.
And some of the one or two politicians think it is true. But the point is, for a lot of people, it will work. It will terrify them. And that's because we so long ago, this is what codependency does. You know, our codependency is between us and the government. That's our codependency. It was us and our parents, us and the school, and then us and the university, because we wanted the qualifications, and then it becomes us and the government. So we've created, and they've done everything they can to ensure there's a codependency. You know, if you're out of work, we'll pay you, and if you do this, we'll help you. We'll look after your medical bills. They have created a codependency to make people more and more helpless. You know, and this is what they've got. I remember speaking to a pensioner in England years ago, and he's told me he'd just gone on to the pension. He said what was wrong with him. So I said, oh, that's easy. And told him exactly what he could do to heal it. He said, oh, don't bother to tell me, mate. I can get all my medicine and everything for free now. So he's a classic victim.
Let's dedicate the last 6 minutes to what you can do if you feel you are in a codependent situation, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's at work or whatever. If you just realize, oh my God, that's
I
me.
think I think what I would do is look at ways, where did I start trickling away my power? Where did I start? Now, let's say you wake up like a battery that's been on charge overnight. Your chakras have filled you. You're fully charged up from your chakras. Anxiety separates you. You're losing energy. Fear separates you. You're losing energy. And look at the day and see how much worry, how much anxiety, how much fear, how much regret, how much is going on in your day that is draining you of energy. You know, we should be able to go till 10 o'clock at night, still fairly bright and capable, and then ready for sleep.
So step one is observation.
A lot of people are running down by mid-afternoon. And so look at how you're losing your energy, and then you'll realize where you're giving your power away. You're giving your power away to anxiety, worries. You get nothing back. It's a completely one-way thing. And so start to learn to trust your own counsel. Don't believe all this outside stuff. Begin to trust your own counsel. Begin to create a basis where I am a being of love and light. I've happened to hear that character in Australia. I'm a magnificent, metaphysical, multidimensional, immortal, eternal being of love and light. Now, that is powerful. That is powerful. I'm going to write that on a card. I'm going to carry it with me all day. Anytime I start feeling anxiety, I'm going to take the card out to remind me who I am and think, would that being feel anxious and worried right now? No. So that's me, and I won't. And begin to change a program, begin to change a pattern where you take back your power. And as you take it back, and it begins to feel good. Plus you get healthier, plus your need of alcohol begins to go down, your need of drugs gets less and less. Everything you're codependent on, you know, alcohol, codependency, drugs, for many, codependency, advice from other people, codependency. Look it up on Google, codependency. Everything around us is creating the codependency. You know, I'm basically, I don't use them. If I can't find what I want, I might look on Google, sure. If I don't find it quickly, I wouldn't spend more than half an hour a day on anything to do with social media or any of those things. I'm just not there with it. And so wean yourself away from all those little dependencies that you actually don't need. And if they were suddenly, just imagine tomorrow the electronic world collapse, there isn't any. What are you going to do? How are you going to live? Your city's just come to a stop. No sewerage is going, no water's coming in, no cars are traveling, no hospitals are functioning, no cars are moving, no transport. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Don't ever think that that couldn't happen, because it could. And the simple fact is you could build a way up where you would be okay. You'd think, oh my God, this is not good. But you could just walk out the city. You could walk out. You would have one of those survival straws where you can drink water from anywhere. And so you're not going to die immediately. You can breathe, you walk out. There are a lot of things we could do, but for most people, it would be, I'm sorry to say, most of the cities, there would be millions dead very quickly. We're codependent on the cities, the system, everything.
Everything, yeah. That's why I found it such an intriguing topic, because I think that's at the core of the issue.
Yeah, well, I thought of dependency on people. I didn't think of all these other things until later.
There you go.
And yeah.
I think one of the most common traps, though, so what you said now is observation is first. So first you observe, okay, I wake up refreshed. Or if I don't, let's find out why not. But if I do wake up refreshed, I observe myself throughout the day and see what happens. Where do I lose energy? So step one is observation. What I see so many people get caught up in is when they start observing and they find the first thing like, it's my boss, it's my wife, it's my cell phone, it's my computer, that then they get into these externalizations again, instead of saying, okay, it's my boss, but I am the one who has to deal with the situation. So how am I going to deal with it? So there's this constant trap that we can fall into, like blaming someone, even in the process of observing where we lose our energy. Because in this new age world, there's so much stuff about, oh, these demons, they're taking my energy. This person has such a bad energy, is dragging my energy. You know, there's so much of that, still that same blame game.
Yeah, the blame game. That's another topic we could talk on, the blame game. But people give their power away. What I would also suggest is practice to begin gently, but self-reliance, where you rely on something outside of you. Look at saying, okay, well, maybe I could take a bicycle to work. It would be good for me. I'd be getting exercise, and then I'm not reliant on everything in the city. Gradually, see if you can build up your self-reliance. I do this. To a strong degree, I do this. My son came round, he said, have you got a welder, Dad? Well, I got a welder, and what was broken, I welded it up, and there was a time I had no idea how to weld. But one day I decided way back, I need to learn to weld, because otherwise I've got to rely on somebody else. And so I got a welder and taught myself to weld. And so self-reliance is a good thing, not hobbies, but self-reliance in living, in the essentials of life. It doesn't have to go to a crazy degree, but to a degree where you feel it, to a degree that is empowering. You know, codependency is disempowering. And that's the whole idea behind it as regards to the social world and the media and everything. But self-reliance is very self-empowering. And just to empower yourself in ways, you may have a garden, it may be all grass. It may be a dog's backyard. Shoot the dog and start growing vegetables. Okay, I didn't mean that, I was joking. But start to grow vegetables, put a fence across a piece, start to be reliant on yourself instead of so utterly dependent on supermarkets, shopping centers, taxis, everything else. We've been led along into this deliberately. There's no question. Make us helpless, and then they can do what they like. And they're just about proving it now. And except deep down, you're not helpless. Deep down, it's all there. Once you had thousands of incarnations in the Paleolithic times, you were incredibly self-reliant. It's all there, but you've got to dig down and find it. Find a way to build up your self-esteem, your self-worth, empower yourself. And every time you do that, however slow the journey, you're getting less and less codependent on other people and the society around us.
Wonderful. I thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you. We chewed around on it a bit at the beginning, but we got to some good stuff.
I think so too. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to Michael's channel. Make sure to like it, make sure to share it. And Michael is on so many platforms. You can find all his links underneath. He's constantly being taken down from major platforms more and more. So make sure that you go to one of these alternative platforms as well. And thanks for being with us.